everything around me. Green, get the money. Dollar bill, yo.
So, okay, so this morning is a big morning. If you guys hadn't seen the press release that went out, we have announced our launch date. Along with that, we put a couple things out that are pretty cool. One is an animatic, which is basically going to play at the beginning of the game. The goal of that is to basically explain to you a little bit about what's going on in the Crowfall universe. Like, what happened, what's the major conflict, like what went wrong in this universe, and what's your role to play in it, which is really cool. I just kind of want to remind everybody that we are launching. I'm excited to launch, but launch is not the end of an MMO. Launch is the beginning of an MMO, right? Every game I've ever worked on, I look back on launch and I think of it. I use the analogy in the founders update. Launch is like having a baby, like it's like giving birth, because it is kind of scary and it is kind of messy and it's kind of painful. But at the end of the day, you're hoping to breathe life into something that will continue past you. I brought up that Gordon was executive producer on Ultima Online, and that came out in I think '97. I was the creative director on Shadowbane, which came out in 2003. Both those games are still running and playing now. You have thousands of people who have played them, and they're both still running now. And they have evolved significantly from where they were at the beginning, right, when they first came out. So this is really just the beginning for us. That's the biggest thing is that we set out to make something very, very different. It was a bold and kind of crazy idea. Not all of those ideas worked. Some of them worked really well. Some of them we spent a lot of time and energy on and ultimately said, it didn't quite work. But the core vision of what we set out to do, I think we're still there, right? We wanted a world where players could make changes, fundamentally the game would change on a day-to-day basis. We wanted a world where you had a series of individual servers and every one of them could be unique. They could have unique game modes, they could have unique rules, they could have unique maps, they could have unique political structures. We did that. We wanted to put an infrastructure together to allow characters to move between those worlds so that some of them could even come up and then go offline and you move your character and some of your equipment on. We did that. We wanted to create a territory capture system. We wanted to allow you to build up buildings and rip down those buildings. Like, if you look at the core of what we set out to do, that's the game that we made. A lot of things changed over time because that's kind of inevitable. That happens in game development. And in fact, I think the key difference here is not that we're unique in that. I think the key difference is that usually you guys don't see that, right? The other thing that we did was we decided to make this game in a very different, unique way. And that was to have no NDA from the beginning and be completely transparent. And there are days when I've really wondered if that was the right call, right? Because it opens us up to taking the tomatoes and the arrows, and it opens us up to critique. It means that we make our mistakes publicly, whereas if we had an NDA, we could hide behind that and we could make our mistakes and then nobody would know, right? But we decided not to do that because we wanted to build this game with you guys. So it wasn't just a new game idea, it was a new approach to making that game. And ultimately, I think it was the right call. You guys have been around every step of the way. But the evolution of the game kind of starting here and trying things out and then moving over here and trying other things out, that's just normal. I know it doesn't seem that way because most games hide behind either technology firewalls or legal firewalls or just secrecy and don't show it to you. But, Overwatch was originally an MMO for years while they worked on it. This is a normal thing in games that they do shift a little bit. But I think ultimately, if you go back and look at what we originally set out to do, I think that we largely achieved that. So I'm really proud of that. And I want to thank you guys for joining us every step of the way.
Yeah, and I think it was as I described it to you one day, Todd, where I said it's basically like we're all on a stage and the audience is literally telling us what to do, how to act.
Yeah,
and
like
if
an
we
improv
make a
show.
misstep, we literally get a tomato thrown in our face or some lettuce. And as a designer, working under that kind of spotlight has been humbling in many ways because normally it's like what Todd said. You have 5 years and you hit your beta or your alpha, and some things are just too late to change. You just can't course correct things at that point. It's like, well, that's kind of what we have. We can tweak it a little, but it's not going to change significantly. On Crowfall, if we had bad ideas, we got told about those bad ideas right off the bat.
And we did.
And
We did have some. I mean, not all the ideas are going to be good, and sometimes they look
yeah,
great on a whiteboard or in a design doc, and then you try them and they just don't work. Like that. That's normal. Like that happens. But
but
we
it's
also
seamless
did.
to them,
It
right?
gave,
As an audience, they
for
never
sure,
see that.
usually. Yeah, but it did give us a chance to course correct, and we did. We did incorporate a tremendous amount of feedback. I mean, I have notes in this version that just went live, right? We have things that came online that we didn't internally expect we were going to do. Like, I'll give an example as respec, right? We had respec in the game, and it was a VIP only thing, and we had a lot of players come back and say, "Give me a way to do it if I'm not a VIP player." And so we talked about it and we looked at it and we played it ourselves. And eventually we're like, you know what? Actually, I buy that. So now in this latest version, we put in a respec tome that you can go and buy for gold. So you can actually get respec. Exports, like we have this idea of the embargo only allowing you to bring certain things into and out of the worlds. That way, the individual world, we can kind of preserve the state so that we have a land rush at the beginning. And it's not just the same, every single time Uncle Bob wins because he brought in tanks from the last time we played Risk. We've made a number of changes to those over time. In this last round, we got now the ability to lock down imports to say you can bring in items, but they have to be items you can equip. So you can't bring in a bunch of stuff that immediately unbalances the campaign. This newest version, we also got the ability to a flag to do free exports, because what we learned was a lot of people were getting around export restrictions anyway using alt characters. And so because of that, it didn't make it impossible. It just made it super tedious. And because the import now works pretty solid, great. Now we can have dregs campaigns that we just say, you know what, we don't care what you take out on the other end. If you're able to earn it in the campaign, we're going to let you export it. So all of these kind of things, this game has never been us off in an ivory tower just working on the game and then putting stuff out and saying that's what it is, right? Those two examples are literally in this last build. We've been doing that the entire time. And that's because you guys, to a large degree, the game has been kind of crowdsourced in design as much as it's been crowdfunded. And so we want to thank you guys for that. That's been very
and
cool.
I hope you enjoyed it, because I don't know that another company would ever, having seen this, want to follow this model again.
Yeah, not
right?
exactly, for sure.
Right. It has been painful in many ways. It has been enlightening in many ways, but it takes a lot to put yourself out there and just have tomatoes thrown at you, right?
Yeah,
I mean, it's
sure.
just it's difficult at times.
Well,
So
but the flip side of it is also very fulfilling, right? So while we do have
is.
some people out there who inevitably any decision we make, somebody's not going to like it, but we also have a core, probably the people who are watching this live right now, most of whom or a large percentage of whom have been playing this game now for years. And we have people that are still playing that started in Hunger Dome version 1 with us 5 years ago who are still playing. And I mean, keeping somebody for a year on a live finished product is a challenge. So the fact that we have a hardcore following is awesome. So I mean, that's kind of who we made this game for. We never set out to be a WoW killer. I'd love to find a lot more people like that, but I'm also fine if we end up with a sustaining base that's like, here's our audience, and the audience does love what we built, and they are willing to stick with us forever. That's fantastic. I mean, ultimately, then I will look back and say that this has been a project well worth doing, and I'll feel proud for what we've accomplished. So, okay, so that in fact, that's kind of what I said in the Founders Update. I would appreciate you guys going and reading it, because I'm sure, again, live in front of the studio audience, I always forget, like, oh, I meant to say this and stuff like that. But I did have some time to actually sit down and write down my thoughts there. So go check that out. And as always, we're happy to have your feedback. And please do click the video at the end so that you can hear thank yous from the individual team members, because that's a big deal. And then the question will inevitably, like, okay, and then when are you going to launch your first dregs, and when are you going to launch this and stuff like that? That's largely going to be driven by how many players coming in, which of course we don't know, but we have a model that we put together that says, and when this many people hit this point, then we think we're ready to launch one. When this many people hit this point, we'll launch the next one. So all of those details will be coming out really right as we come out in launch, or right when we go live. So I think that'll be really exciting. Oh, and it does. So I have had questions about, okay, so now what are you gonna do with Hunger Dome? So can I jump to that now, or is there more you want to cover?
One more piece.
Okay, go ahead.
Yep. The last piece is our monthly Crow rewards. Because the launch date is out of sync with our monthly Crow rewards, the June Crow rewards will close on June 24th normally, but we're going to extend it out to July 5th. So they're available to all backers who buy the launch product.
Okay, so basically, the June reward will be extended right up till the point of. So I think that.
And it's really cool. We'll show it at the end. But now you can go on Hunger Dome.
Okay, Hunger Dome will be going offline though now until after launch. I think of Hunger Dome more as an event. I mean, our main game has always been the MMO, right? That's the main purpose of the game. Hunger Dome is kind of a cool event that I think we can do time to time. What we will likely do is mid next month, like after launch, maybe mid to late July, we'll start doing once a month or twice a month Hunger Dome nights, where we basically pick a night and say, here's the time window, or it'll because of EU US, we'll probably do 2 time windows as we've been doing, and we'll do the same thing we have been doing, which is we'll open it up, we'll let people come in, they can blow off some steam, they can have some fun, and then the event will be over and we'll go back to the normal game. Eventually, if we pick up enough steam that we need to do more of those windows, then we'll do more of them. I think it's a really cool thing. I love it as a nice, cool event that we can do. I love that you can bring your characters over from the MMO into it, because I think that also creates a really nice little loop between the 2 game modes. But ultimately, it was intended to be an event, so we're not going to keep running those right now. For a short period of time at least. We'll pick it up again after launch.
Let's talk about what we did in 6530. That was the next agenda piece, which is all the things that we built for 6530. Which was a bunch of content, and it was a lot of fun stuff. You saw the beginning of the hot zones go out, which is basically a hot zone is every so often a parcel turns into a area where the loot is doubled, the gold is doubled, basically everything is doubled.
Now. It's tripled now, I believe.
Oh,
we juiced them up to make them even better. Yeah, and I think that the key is. So these things will activate. A single zone in a world will activate, and it activates for 3 hours. But the important thing is there's always one active. So it doesn't matter what time of the game you're logging in, you know that place is likely to be a hotbed for PvP activity, right? I mean, it'll be more active, obviously, at peak than it would be during the trough. But even still, the world, it's very hard to know where to go. Like, where do I go at any given time? So these things show up on the event schedule, right? In addition to the forts and the keeps and the castles saying, hey, this is going to go active at 2:30 p.m. or whatever. Hot zones appear there as well. They also show up on the map. The zone is literally on fire. So if you open the map, you can see it. You can go there. And if you get there and there's other people there, you're guaranteed to have some PvP activity. If you get there and nobody is, then you're going to have some free, really lucrative farming until somebody else shows up. So this is, and I'll be honest, this is an idea that's lifted straight from Shadowbane. I think it was really cool in Shadowbane, and we pretty much mirrored it. There's a few minor differences to accommodate things that we have that Shadowbane didn't, like the siege schedule and stuff like that. But overall, I think it should go a long way to answering the question, what do I do outside of the windows?
Yeah, so, and we can always pull more people there. I've got some ideas for some unique stuff that could only drop in a hot zone area because our loot tables are smart enough to do that. So it's a beginning, like everything else, right? This is our starting point. And now we're going to tweak off the thing. And when these things went live, people were already out there fighting. I mean, and then one guild was dominating the area, and they had exclusive rights to all the lucrative goods. I mean, that's the whole point. So it's great to see them work, and you guys will enjoy them, I have no doubt.
We also we had an opportunity with the hot zones to use some of the new sub biomes that we made. Right now that we had water come online, it actually unlocked a couple of new sub biome types. The swamp being the first one that you guys have seen, and then right behind that we've got the Riverlands and the Riverland Forest, which I've seen them. They're done. I don't think they've actually made it out to you guys yet, but they'll be making it out soon as well, which is great. Having some more variety in the world, I think, is a really big deal. I think that'll be very, very cool.
Yeah, that's part of the 6540 stuff. And then what else we also got in 6530 was the friends list. Hooray! You can now see if your friends are online, invite them into groups, which is fantastic. Voice chat came online, which you can talk with your group mates via voice chat.
And I think some of these, there are still pieces there on some of these, like voice chat, and the guild management was also part of Friends. There still are some dangling pieces that are coming in 640. I honestly, I can't recall which parts are already out and which parts are still being cooked. There were a few odd pieces that weren't quite in, but those will all be finalized here in this next version.
We've got, obviously, the NP saw a large overhaul in the first
that
3
was
acts of
huge.
it.
Yep,
Right, that
yep,
was
yep.
huge.
Yeah, so now it was originally just 2 chapters. Those were completely redone and fleshed out. We added the 3rd chapter, so now you have Earth Temple, Sun Temple, Moon Temple, and right now we're adding the 4th chapter, which is breaking out the earliest PvP zones for each of those 3 factions. So chapter 4 is coming online. The goal of that chapter is now to bridge people from the early leveling PvE, learn how this game works part of the game, to the strategy game. So it's the kind of that last piece to teach people. So I'm excited to see that one come online. It's where you transition from quest lines to victory cards, for example. So I think that'll be really cool.
We saw the implementation of Twitch drops, which I've seen people run around on all their purple Twitch mounts in game. It's pretty cool because it's a lot of fun rewards there. And we worked out all of the oddities of the Twitch drops is a better way to put it. And the biggest thing that generally people don't realize is if you have multiple Twitch windows open, it causes problems with the drops. So just as future, hey, I just want to sit in this stream for drops, it can cause problems with you being able to redeem rewards, and there's nothing we can do about it. But we work with what we got. And you guys got a lot of fun stuff. Everybody enjoyed building that stuff, and then seeing people use it is actually a lot of fun.
And actually, I when I mentioned the Hunger Dome partners earlier, I accidentally did not mention Twitch, and I really should have, because they were instrumental in helping us actually run the tournament and getting on the front page, which was amazing, and in helping us get the Twitch drops working, which was really, really cool. So I'm glad that you hit that, because it again, my brain has a tendency to skip over details sometimes. It reminded me of one that really needed to be missed, so it gave me a chance to do that. So, sorry, guys.
Okay, and then we saw the removal of the chicken ticker or food meter in 6530.
That's another one that was driven by players, by the way. It was another one that you and I put in originally because we thought it was cool. I think you liked it from survival games. I liked it because Daiku Mud had it, and I'm an original Daiku Mud player and designer. But ultimately, you guys, the players, didn't like it. But what you did like was the buffs and the crafting profession and the food part. So we kept that, but we lost the actual chicken dicker part, the thing that was gravity. We kind of took away the part about it that you guys found to be annoying, is I think the word I heard most of all.
Yeah, I mean, it served 2 different masters, right? There was 2 different design goals behind that. And in the MMO genre, everyone has kind of accepted that foods give you buffs, and that's what they do.
Yep.
And then over in the survival land, it's basically that gravity as you described. And we wanted to pick one because you really don't want to overload your systems like that too much.
Yep.
And then the final implementation, which I'm not sure lots of people have seen, have been the daemons in the dregs. Right? We introduced special events where large bosses will spawn, and you definitely know what it is.
Yeah, it comes up as an event, right? It announces itself as an event notification.
Right, and then when it dies, there's a ghost there, and you get a crazy harvesting buff, and all kinds of resource nodes spawn, and it is yet another way that we're trying to pull people together to create either lucrative rewards or PvP conflict. Right, you're going to find one of those things there. And it's pretty cool to see that stuff coming online with all of the new little tech pieces that we've got, that design is able to kind of cobble those things together and make them work.
Yeah, I think that's actually a critical point that actually touches on what we said earlier about launch or going live not being the end, but being the beginning, is right. We're now finally getting all of the pieces online to be able to do some of these things that start to add interest to the game. Like this, it wasn't a giant tech ask to go and do that. It was just the designers going, hey, here's a thing that we feel like is missing in the game. How can we achieve it with what we have? And because we have event notifications, we can tie it to that. And because we have the ability to now trigger harvesting spawners based on something dying, we could do it based on that. So I think it's really cool that we are to the point where now we have all the foundation built, right? All the pieces are there. It's a really solid foundation for us to now be able to add things like that for years and years and years to come, assuming that we can find an audience that is willing to go on that ride with us. And I sincerely hope that we can.
Cool. And that ends with what we do with 6530, which was another big step forward. I think every one of our milestones this year and last year have just been really big steps forward and stuff to do actually in the game, which is great. And lots of polish and optimization. That always is always on our radar, is the optimization and ways we can make the client play smoother and the server behave as well.
Cool.
Okay, so now we've got the roadmap.
Yeah. Let me bring it up real quick. So I'm going to kind of do the same thing I did last time with the roadmap, which is it's basically an update on here's last time so part of what's interesting about developing a game like this that I think people generally don't get, right, is you've got dozens and dozens of people with very different skill sets who are all working on different things, right? So it's not like you just sit down and say, here's the priority list of things that we want to try and get done in the next milestone, because it's discipline based, right? If I decide that I really want to remove the chicken ticker, but the engineers that are responsible to work on that are too busy working on something else, then I can't do it. It doesn't matter if I have 12 artists who are coming available, none of them can do that work. So what you end up having is a whole bunch of different priority lists and things that are constantly bubbling up and going down, especially at this part of the project where it's about bug fixing, and bug fixing. So much of your time is spent bug fixing and polish. And bug fixing, by its definition, you don't know how long it's going to take because you have to find the bug. It's a big problem that you have to solve. Every bug is it's a puzzle. So how long is it going to take to fix that bug? I don't know. Engineers will make a guess, and sometimes those guesses are spot on, and sometimes they're too high, and sometimes they're too low, and that's just kind of the normal part of the process, right? So what happens, that means, is that we'll come up with our high-level roadmap, but the roadmap, no battle plan survives engagement with the enemy.
Right.
Inevitably, that plan doesn't exactly turn out the way you want, because you might find new bugs that pop up that are super high priority, and it's like, all right, well, I wanted to have Bob working on pulling the chicken ticker, but look, there's a bug in one of Bob's systems, so I guess that got pushed down. So it means that we're always in a kind of process of triaging and reprioritizing and moving things around. And when you guys pitch new ideas like, hey, I want a respec tome. Okay, that actually, we totally get it. That makes sense. Blair, why don't you see if you can work this weekend and figure that out, which happens a lot, actually. How late were you up last night?
I did my final check-in last night at like 2:47 a.m.
Right, like Blair is one of those guys who gets most of his work done late at night. Whereas I'm an early morning guy. I'm always get up early in the morning. So anyway, so that's kind of the process that we go through. So going through and taking a look at the roadmap, things inevitably shift around a bit, but we are to the point now where they're not shifting as much, because the goal of this version right now really is lock it in, fix the bugs we need to fix, polish the bits that don't make sense to players. I'll give you a good example, is we have a whole lot of terms that we use in the game that players may or may not understand. And sometimes those terms are like CC. Okay, well, I know that because I played this other game. I know what CC means. But sometimes they're not. It's like pips. Well, once you get the idea of, oh, there's a little widget and I can have up to 5 pips, you get it. But before that, you're just like, why is this game talking about pips as if I know what that is? It never told me what that is. So in this new version, we have a glossary coming online that you can actually, when you're looking at a mouse over, you can hit a key and a little window will slide out to the left that'll say, hey, all the terms that are on this mouse over, if you don't know what they are, it's going to tell you what they are. Little bits like that, that's what we're spending our time on now, is we have a game. It is a fun and playable game. If it wasn't, we wouldn't have a core following that has been playing this game for years. We need to get more people to understand how that game works and get into it. That's not to say that we won't add to it. I've got a laundry list, as you'll see on the roadmap, of stuff that I would love to have, and I'd love to have it as soon as possible. But it's not the end, it's the beginning. We can add all this stuff if we can just get our legs under us, get that audience, and have a successful launch. So, okay, so let me go to my roadmap and pull it up. So going to the first slide of the roadmap, if you can bring that up for us, Emily. So I kind of broke this out. This was originally kind of the short-term slide. So what I made it now was a launch and first updates slide, which means that this is stuff that is either going to be in here, it's going to be coming in the next week or two, or if not, then it's the highest priority stuff that we want to hit in the first updates that are going to come after launch. And that may be the first update, it may be the second update, it may be the third. We don't want to really slow our launch cadence or our cadence of development updates down after launch, though eventually we probably will slow it down a little bit just because we're definitely burning the midnight oil right now. So the stuff that's here in white is stuff that actually made it in. So you'll see that there were a number of things that made it in that came either from team members or ideas from the community or whatever, that I was very pleased to see we got in. Things like, factories, of course, we didn't even talk about because that was mentioned last time. The free exports, the respec for gold. We did get increased storage for EKs, that's coming. The hot zones and the demons, which are both for kind of answers to the questions about what do I do during off hours. Cosmetic recipes. We didn't talk about that one at all, Blair. So after this is done, let's make sure that we circle back around and talk about that because that one's really cool. Active loot windows for forts. Okay, so this is another one I don't think we've talked about. So we've got a lot of feedback from players that forts are only interesting during the last 5 minutes because once you capture the fort, it spawns loot for you over the period of the next full day. And it would be better if it was active, if that active period was important the entire time. So we flipped the logic on that. Now what happens is a fort, when it goes active, it begins spawning its loot and it spawns it on a timer every 10 minutes during the window. So you have to get there, capture it, and get that loot out of it, and that should drive fighting the entire time. So we actually got that one in as well. Friends and Guilds Management we got in. Of course, I mentioned the update to the new player experience and Chapter 4 of the new player experience, which is coming online. We're finishing that up right now. Twitch drops, voice chat, water, the Riverlands biome. I forgot to put on the chart, but should have the Swamps biome, and there's also a Forest Riverlands biome. And I'm hoping that those will get in too. If they don't get it in by launch, they'll come in the first update. The glossary, which I think is really cool, and the quest and victory card tracker, which they haven't seen yet, but is also coming. So that'll be really cool. It's basically when you're in the NPE, when you're in the new player experience, in the upper right-hand corner, it actually shows you, it's a quest tracker, right? It shows you, here's the quest you're on, and here's the tasks you have, and here's how you're progressing on them. As we get you into the 4th chapter of the new player experience, we will transition that tracker from tracking quest to showing your victory cards as a way of teaching people about the idea of victory cards. So we can, if I just jump in the game and and my immediate question is, okay, I'm in the game, what do I do? What we're trying to do is between events, the event schedule, and the tracker, I want an answer to that question no matter what time you log in. There's multiple things that are trying to get your attention saying, hey, here's a thing you can go do. Here's a thing you can go do. Because we do have a bunch of these activities. We just need to get them more in your face. So that's a big push between now and launch as well. Things that I wanted, but it looks like we'll probably not hit by launch, but we'll hit in the first or second or, in the first series of updates. The discipline changes we want. I wanted it mostly because I think it'll be kind of painful to change it after we launch, but it is what it is. We couldn't get it in time. Soul binding is a part of that. The handshake system for sieges, I still really want that. It'll come as soon as we can get it. It's just that, unfortunately, the people who are involved in building that are tied up in other things. I just can't do it. If I can find a hole, I'll get it in as soon as I can. I still like the idea of a permanent guild versus guild rule set. I think even if you were not a fan of the Hunger Dome, I think you should at least recognize that it was a brilliant test run of what we originally set out to do, which is make a game that we can make new modes and that they will fit within our architecture and we can experiment, because that totally worked, which is really cool. And then the last one that we're discussing, and I'd love to have some feedback on this, is alliance scoring. So right now, players are having to do kind of weird and funky things to deal with how their alliances work. Alliances effectively are not scored in conquest points. It just comes down to the guild, which means, what do I want to do? Do I want to then try and find alliances where I'm pushing everything to me? Do I try and create a fake guild that we're all going to actually ally to and we all push the points to that guild? I kind of don't like that stuff. So one of the ideas that we talked about was to have conquest at the end, have the rewards and the win condition effectively sum the points of all the people in your alliance. So what that would mean is you'd have last minute political shenanigans as people would realize the campaign's coming to an end, where they would start to try and convince people to shift alliances. We're not seeing a lot of that right now, frankly. In fact, the alliances kind of tend to maintain themselves from one campaign to the next, and I actually think it's a problem. I've seen any number of times where on a stream somebody is riding around in the world and they're saying, I can't find PvP, and I'm like, well, fight them. They're like, I'm not going to fight them. They're in my alliance. Okay, well, why don't you fight them? Well, they're also in my alliance. That's not really great for the game because it means that those are PvP opportunities being missed. So I wonder if this would be an interesting way to kind of flip the balance a little bit and get people to try it out. The great thing, again, about our architecture is we could always put that as a campaign rule and try it. And if we like it, then we keep it and we make it the norm. And if we don't like it, then we just say, okay, well, that was another nice experiment, and we drop it. So anyway, that's one that I'm kind of leaning towards trying, but I'd love to hear feedback from you guys on whether you think it's worth doing or not.
Yeah, and that's always a good sounding bell for us whenever a system has all these steps you have to jump through to use it. It's like, all right, something's going odd here, right? And so we look at it, and when you hear like, oh, I need to do this and this and this and this, and then we can win, and those steps are just bizarre. Also, the second problem, as Todd pointed out, is we've effectively given you a system where you can opt out of PvP with most of the server via the alliance system, right? Because it is boundless, you just tend to form the biggest group that you can.
Right, and that's another part that ties into this. I didn't put it here specifically. I think it is on one of my future work slides, was alliance and guild caps. Take another look at the alliance caps. Once we have enough actual mass of players, which I really hope we do, obviously, once we have enough mass that we can have different campaigns of different types running, then I think it's easier for us to go in and do things like guild and alliance caps. Because if we put in one right now, what we're basically saying is, okay, well, hey, you're a large guild. Sorry, you have to choose who of your friends you can play with. And that really sucks. I've been very resistant to do that, even though there's a lot of benefits to having guild and alliance caps, frankly. Being able to have more control over that, not just having it like, it's bring whoever you want. I think I would really like to do it. It just felt like to me that's not where we are right now in development, so I put it on the future list. There's not a lot, by the way, on the other slides that has changed. Like we can go through the midterm and the long term, but I don't think necessarily it's worth the time because we put them out last month and they haven't significantly changed. What I'll start doing, since I don't want to necessarily go through them every time, is maybe in the future, I'll highlight things that have changed. Things have either moved forward or things have been pushed out, or if we just rethink an idea and decide, what, we don't want to do that, or we come up with a new idea, or you guys have something that's like, oh, that's really cool, we should add that to the list. Maybe I'll highlight those so that we don't have to go through and kind of line items, just repeat the same thing that we said last time. So I don't think the midterm, there's another midterm slide and there's two long terms, but I don't really think they've changed significantly. And I wouldn't expect them to right now because my eyes right now are mostly on launch and the first updates right after launch, not the long term. Though there are, like I said, I've got years and years and years of things I'd love to add to the game, and I am sure that every person watching this stream also has their own list of things that they would love to see added to the game, because it's an MMO. Like I said, we're breathing life into it, and we're hoping that it will outlive us a decade or longer.
Yeah, and people are hitting that in chat. Like, our intent in a lot of ways with the alliances was to help the small guys group up so that they had the chance against the big guys, not so the big guys could form the mega alliances, right? That's right. That's just, it's another thing. And
yep, it's another thing. And it's not a terribly hard one. It's just another thing, right? It's just another thing in a laundry list of things. So I will say this is also keep in mind that the roadmaps, that this is a living, breathing document. Like, this is not set in stone. Like I said, we change it constantly as people finish work early or other things take too long. We're constantly moving things around. So your feedback has always been a part of that calculation of what gets moved to the top and what gets moved down. So keep that feedback coming, because if you guys stop telling us, then we won't know. And left on our devices, we'll make calls, because we've got to keep moving forward. But if something is like, hey, this is a real problem, I do listen and I do try to take that into account. So
so since we're going to move into the 6540 stuff, which is what's coming next,
Okay,
that was
great.
part of this, I'll just dive into the cosmetic recipes really quick.
Cool. Sounds great.
So one of the things that we couldn't do prior to getting code a couple days ago was take an existing item, run it through the crafting process, and do something to it.
And modify it, right, for sure.
Just do anything to it. Because what would happen is, typically, as any of you who have crafted know, the way our system works is it uses the quality as a multiplier, it bundles up all the stats, and it increases the stats at every single step. So you just can't run something through the crafting process and not increase the stats and or reset
it.
Right. Basically, we're destroying and creating a new thing, and that new thing always has max durability, and it will have a series of increases of stats along the way. That's how the system works. What we have now is an ability to take an existing weapon that has, let's say, 500 durability left of 2,500 durability. You can run it through, and I can modify that thing. And what that opens up to us is some enchanting style stuff in the future where I can just flat out add stats to that existing item, or I can change the appearance of the thing, which we had to do for one of our Kickstarter awards. For those of you who have the arcane weapon set entitlement, is we've created an item with a shader on it, and you can run your existing advanced crafted item through the process, and boom, you get the new appearance on the other side, and it has the exact same stats and the exact same durability as when you ran it through there. So,
and I will say that the enchantment, we could set it up this way, but we didn't. The enchantments are only allow you to put crafted items through the recipes for enchanting. We do not allow you to enchant war tribe items. And like I said, the system would support it. We just decided, no, let's just make it crafting only. It'll be another thing that crafters get. That makes crafting, gives them another thing that's cool. So if you want your item to look like a cool arcane longsword, you can take a crafted longsword with whatever stats it has, you feed it in using this recipe, and it will change the appearance. So we already kind of had that for mounts. The reason it worked for mounts is because mounts didn't have stats, right? So that's how we were able to transmog mounts before. Now we can do it for weapons and armor and equipment. So, but here's the stuff that I think in the future is going to be even cooler. We can also do enchantments with this system. So I could take a longsword that was crafted, take it to an enchanter, put a Winter's Rose into it, and what could come out the other end is it adds the vampiric effect, which actually gives me a new power I can load out on my tray, which gives me a life drain once an hour. Like we can actually do augments to that base item as another step in crafting, which is just really cool. And we didn't have the ability to do it before, because previously, if you put that longsword into the crafting recipe, it's going to eat that longsword. It would only take raw materials and create something new. It could never really reference the individual stats on that item and save them. It could not persist them through to the final craft, but we can do that now. So I think it's really cool. We actually got this because it was an offshoot of the factory's work, right?
Yeah, it was funny.
You feed in a parent item and a bunch of stuff, and it would Xerox it. We now had the capacity to feed in a parent item and modify it, which is really cool. So there's tons of stuff we were going to be able to do with that. So that's another foundational system that I see us being able to use and get a lot of benefit out in a myriad of ways post-launch.
Yeah, in fact, in this update, we also got some final crafting UI updates as well with the header, and will now, most cases, show the item tooltip of what it's going to produce, so you can hover over it. It's just finishing it out, right, and polishing it up. And we have a very robust crafting system that I'm very proud of, and I think that putting these finishing touches on it, for those of you who enjoy that kind of thing, are really going to enjoy it. Okay, so in 6540, Todd already talked a little bit about this. Part 4 to the new player experience, which is going to introduce you to the PvP experience and the strategy game and all the different PvP experiences and Skypoint Beyond, and more practice, right? As Todd said, a lot of this is about teaching new people, and I think I heard Dilbo in a stream allude to this the other day, where 90% of Crowfall's players now are veterans and 10% are new people. We need to shift that ratio so we have a lot of new people and they get in there and they just up the level of fun in the world because there's just more people, right? So
the other part of this is that we have a lot of games. There's a lot of game there that the average person who just comes in and plays Crowfall for just a couple hours doesn't even know exists.
Correct.
Like they don't even know. They're not exposed to victory cards, so they don't know that's a thing. They're not exposed to some of the coolest stuff in our game, right? The sieging. They just don't. They don't. It's not even a thing for them. They don't. They're never exposed to forts or any of that stuff. So so now being able to go through and have the next set, which is it's a shorter quest line. There's not really, it's not nearly as like detailed as the previous ones, but it's bouncing them up against those systems. I mean, there's literally a question that's like, hey, you really should go find and join a guild. Like, let's just have the quest system take them to that, because what we found is our game really shines. It's really a game for guilds. I mean, at the end of the day, I mean, it's a guild-based game. And so if a player gets into a guild, then they are 50 times more likely to stick around than if they don't. So we need to we need to make that work more, right? Part of that is just finally getting to things that we never got to before, like guild management in game and being able to do invites in game. But part of it is, just exposing people to those systems by saying, hey, there's a system over here. Come check it out and do something. And so I'm excited to see this final piece come into play. I think it should make a pretty big difference. So at where you guys leave off right now at the end of what we call GR3 or God's Reach 3, you finished out Moon Temple. What'll happen is you go back to Earth Temple and you'll be told to go either join a guild or pick one of the 3 factions. And there's actually a guild, or there's a quest that leads you to do that. It teaches you how to use those faction banners. You'll use one, and then now you're gone to one of 3 different worlds where your quest line continues, but you're now in an area that there's some safe zone, but a lot of the things it's going to send you out to do are going to be going into deeper and more dangerous areas of PvP. And we tried to build that risk-reward spectrum even in this infected area, which is now I'm completely protected loot-wise in God's Reach. But once I go to one of these 3 kind of low security areas, now I have 50% chance of my gold dropping. And then when I go to Sky Point, which is kind of the ultimate high-end part of this world experience, I've got 100% chance. So we're trying to basically lead people into that in a way that hopefully will get them over the hump from the new player experience into the actual game that we built, because there is a lot of game there.
Yeah.
Same thing with harvesting and crafting and stuff like that, right? We're trying to get more quest lines in to explain how those systems work. We have quests now that are like, go get your next vessel, to teach people how vessels work. A lot of what we're doing right now is just trying to put the pieces in place. I'll give a small example on the UI front, but when I would hit 30th level with my default starting vessel, I'm basically, as far as if I don't know about vessels and nobody tells me about them, I kind of think the game is over. Like, I think I've maxed it. I don't know that there's anything to do. Now the experience point bar will change to say, you've reached max level with your current vessel, go get another one to increase your max level. Oh, there's more to this game. And right. The initial one that we let you just go buy it. That's 31st level. That's the white. But then the one past that, now I need to start actually either harvesting and crafting my own, or I need to buy one, or I need to find a guild, or I need to find a crafter to make me one. Like, stair-stepping people into the game we made. That's the biggest challenge between now and launch. And we are doing it. We're getting very close, in my opinion.
Because you look at, and the difference again between the vets and the newer players, the vets have just had 5 years to absorb all of this knowledge, right? And the new players, they're just gonna be like, okay, I won, now what?
Exactly.
So
and we know that we won't keep them all. I mean, ultimately, right? We've always kind of known that we won't keep them all. We made a hardcore strategy PvP MMO. That is not. The market is not WoW. It's not the WoW players out there. But at least what I really want is I want the players who are into that game and will enjoy it. I want to get them over the hump into that game so that they can enjoy it. And if we do that, then I think that we'll have a game that we can continue to work on for decades. That's the big challenge we've got in front of us now. But we're close. I believe that we're really close.
Yep. And also with 6540, you're going to be seeing basically our final. We're doing a lot on the design side of cleaning out all of the pre-production stuff and cruft that we've built up, cleaning everything up so it's nice, making sure the numbers are where we want them for launch. You are, like, for example, the strongholds. We've only been playing with 5 to 13-day campaigns all the way through the last year, I want to say, Todd. And now those numbers aren't going to work to build your stronghold for a campaign that lasts 30 days. It's just, they're too small. So a lot of the numbers that we have in right now have been for the audience that we have. So we want to make sure that we can support a longer time frame campaign and things don't end so quickly, like when you're building your city, for example. But there's going to be a lot of little examples like that where we have to do final tweaks to numbers and things.
And those tweaks don't end. I guess, you know, it kind of bears repeating, but the entire promise, the real promise of Crowfall to me was it was an experimentation engine, right? Is I wanted to build a foundation that we could try out new ideas and keep the ones that worked and ditch the ones that didn't and be able to make more and more and more over time. I think we've shown that. I think we've shown that that's been our approach, and that's not going to stop once we go live. The difference is that everything becomes at a bigger scale. Everything becomes more persistent. Everything just takes on a new life. At least that's the hope. So, cool. Anything else in 640 or 540 to talk about?
Like always, optimization. Always that continues. I saw some player culling stuff that's going to come online.
Yep.
That will, again, always trying to help the optimization and make the client run better.
Yeah, I saw some movement changes coming through as well. I tried that this morning. That felt really good. So
tons of bug fixes. So there you go.
Cool.
Okay, jumping into we're getting close on time here, so we're going to jump into the Crow rewards. Yes, we're going to skip the questions because again, otherwise the stream is going to be too ridiculously long.
Well, the questions tend to be very, very detailed. Like on this one recipe, why this or whatever. So I think it makes sense to me as a matter of where we are right now in the project that we should keep it as high level because they're much bigger fish to fry at this moment. So, yeah, for sure. Let's go ahead and roll on.
Okay, so the Crow rewards. Become a backer by 24th of June to receive. Actually, no, that's now the launch date. That would be the 6th of July to receive the Crow reward. And here you go. Let's show this sucker. This is the Crow Spirit mount. And it's very pretty. If you see it animating, you're like, ooh, that's pretty. And then it also comes with the Crow Spirit player name frame. And here, let me read you some rising text. Right into battle on the Crow Spirit horse imbued with the blue glow that ignites our Crow Spirit. A second reward comes along for the ride, the Crow Spirit player name frame, a tribute to your Crow Spirit. By the July 5th, of course. And the GIF of it is, our team did a great job, as always, on the mount and the effects that go into these things. They're super pretty. And I was watching a stream last night. It's always fun to see everybody with their different mounts because everyone tends to pick one as their favorite. And the more mounts you have, the more variety you see. It looks really cool. As the army.
I saw a screenshot of a massive fight last night. So that's really cool. I'm excited. I think we're in a good spot, Mr. Blair. I'm scared and I'm nervous and I'm anxious and all the things you would expect, right, going into this. But at the same time, I'm also really excited. I'm very proud of what our team has made. We took some real risks, both in the game that we set out to make and ultimately made, and also in the way we set out to make it. But ultimately, I hope those risks will pay off. We will see. We'll see very soon. But I do want to thank everybody for supporting us. I know I've said it a billion times, but I probably will say it until the day I die, I want to thank everybody for giving us the chance to take these risks. I think it's really cool. Even if you're one of the people out there who Crowfall ultimately turns out not to be your cup of tea, and that's inevitable because nobody loves every game. That's kind of normal. I do think risk-taking in this space is important. Like, I think it's important. You know, it's a common critique that MMO studios in particular, they just don't take risks anymore. So even if ultimately this game is not for you, thank you for supporting us because risk taking is important, right? And if you know the next team that comes along will look at us and say, hey, is this a cool model? Should I take this risk or not? And so every time one of these projects actually sets sail into the great unknown and manages to survive and get past the Krakens and the Leviathans and actually make it back to shore, that should be celebrated. That should be good for everybody. I think it's good for the industry. I think it's good for the developers. I think it's good for the players. So thank you guys. Thank you so much for being along for the ride. And very soon, when we go see you in game, we'll be seeing you in a game that is actually out, which is really, really cool.
Yes, any future streams should be. We will have launched. Right. That's
Pretty cool.
That's the debarkation point that we are at. There was one more reward that I didn't mention. In July, we're also marketing is giving you a sigil and a belt totem. We didn't have images for them, but there is a launch reward for showing up and being there on day one, which I'm sure everyone in the chat will be there because you've been here for so long. So there will be some more goodies in there.
Cool. All right. Just a reminder, if you have one of these coming to you, make sure we know how to get them to you. Log in and fill out your shipping information. So we want to get these out on the street. So pretty cool. All right. I think that just about does it. I think we're out of time.
Yep.
So thanks everybody for showing up, and help us get the word out, please. If you think what we did is cool, get out there and let people know, hey, here's a different company doing something different and doing it in a different way. Because we really do appreciate the sport. It makes a huge difference. It's kind of what keeps us going, honestly. So I think that's it. Anything else I'm forgetting, Mr.
Yeah,
Blair?
we're going to raid Crusader W after this. So
cool.
Stand by and walk through. I'm sure you guys will have lots of reactions to everything.
For sure. Yeah.
Everyone's in reaction mode now, which is great. And yeah, it's definitely something to make it this far after starting when Crowfall was just an idea on a piece of paper, right? We've been around and been doing this for long, and to march a team all the way through those years and not fall off the side into the great MMO graveyard of the abyss it's an experience, and we learn a lot along the way. We've seen people come into the company who were straight out of school, and now they've got 3 or 4 years under their belt, and they're about to launch their first title. That's exciting as a leader to see other people grow and to teach them and to be able to do that. So I want to thank you guys for giving us the opportunity to do all of that. I'm
glad you guys had a chance to see it as well. So like I mentioned earlier, so having an MMO that is in development for 6 years is actually not that uncommon. Now, obviously, it took us a lot longer than we wanted, and I just have to own that, right? But our heart was in the right place. The reason that we spent longer is because we wanted the game to be as good as possible. I mean, that's why. And ultimately, it's not that long in MMO terms. It's long compared to what we said we were going to do, and I do apologize for that. Like I said, I just own it. But in terms of MMOs, it's really not that long. I mean, my first game job on Shadowbane was I started in December of '99, right? So I've been doing this over 20 years, and I have never been on a project that didn't ship, and I've shipped 4 games. So these things just take a lot of time, and the kind of wandering through the woods, trying things out and adapting and evolving and stuff, that's kind of the normal process. It's just that you guys don't usually see that part of the process. So I'm glad that we gave you a chance to see it, to see how the sausage is made. It is definitely it is a roller coaster of an experience every time. So I'm glad that you guys who aren't in the industry had a chance to kind of ride shotgun with us on this one and see what that is like. I think that's really, really cool. So thank you for sticking around and for helping us make this game. And please stick around and help us make it for the next decade as well. Okay.
Well, we'll see you all after launch.
All right.
Right. I guess that's the next point is see you after launch.
Yeah. And see you in game. Yep.
For sure. Go.
All right.
Good everybody.
Thank you guys.
See you later.
Bye.